Hello, everyone. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Lisa Ryan, who is the founder and Chief Appreciation Strategist at Grategy. Lisa, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. Thanks so much for having me here.
Absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. So excited to dive into your background, talk all things business, talk about the trends in the future. So, without further ado, shall we make a start?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, Lisa, if you could take us back to the early stages of your career, perhaps the starting from perhaps childhood and growing up and sort of what you did, a little bit about your journey as well in terms of business and entrepreneurship and how you found yourself doing what you're doing today.
Sure, I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. I'm the oldest of four children. I think my journey really started with deciding that in my life, I didn't know what I was going to be. I just thought that I would get a job and be a manager. Other than that, I had no idea. I wasn't going to go to college. None of my friends went to college. I didn't even know anybody that was going to college. So when I finally decided to go, because I was working for an executive search firm, and I saw the difference in career paths between people with a degree and without one, I said, I should go to college. And I was the first person in my family to get any kind of degree when I got my associates. And
Wow.
then being on the 14-year plan, I now have my MBA. But the interesting thing about that was that I have my MBA, but my sister, who dropped out of high school as a senior, got her GED. Now she has a master's in social work and is a licensed social worker. My other sister, who got pregnant in high school in 12th grade, now has a master's in nursing, and my brother is a physician. So I have one of the most educated families I know, and we all got our degrees in our 30s.
Wow.
So, and that set me off. I had a career of more than 20 years in sales, including 13 years in industrial sales and 7 years of that in welding. I was in medical sales, and when my medical sales position was eliminated via group conference call with 12 of us getting canned at the same time, I basically said, no company will ever do that to me again. And Grategy was born on that day, October 12th, 2010. So
Amazing.
I have been an entrepreneur and self-employed fully since for 15 years. So it's been awesome.
Amazing. Lisa, what part of that journey, right? What needed to change or what shift happened in mindset that took you from perhaps where you were before to that level you needed to be to really be an entrepreneur and be successful? What change did you need to make and what clicked that you found this is my calling and this is what I really need to do?
Well, I think because I've always been a little bit of a rule breaker, I'm kind of one of those people that ask for forgiveness instead of permission. And so going off on my own, and when I was in the welding industry, I was a straight commission independent contractor. So basically, I ran my own business. When I was in medical sales, I was an employee, but I was still an outside sales rep. But when that position was eliminated, there was a lot of fear because, I made a lot of money in that position. And that was one of the reasons that kept me there, because I never thought that I could live on less money than I was making. And then when the decision was made for me, what I discovered is you can make a lot less money than you think you need when you are happy. And I was so happy with what I was doing and with my husband, who I thought he would be all about, like, girlfriend, you are going back to work thing. He also saw the whole happy wife, happy life thing, and he became my biggest cheerleader. So I'm very grateful for his support over the years. I know that people that struggle to be an entrepreneur on their own without a backup plan. My husband was my backup plan. I knew I was never going to be out on the street, but
Mhm.
it's a tough journey. Uh, whether you have a backup plan like I was lucky enough to, or whether you're on your own. I mean, it's a journey, and yet when I look at everything that I went through and everything that I did, there's really nothing that I would have changed because it's worked out exactly the way it was supposed to.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. And Lisa, could you tell us a little bit about the company? What is it now, the size, the success you're seeing at the minute? For people that don't really know about yourself or the company, what does Gratify do, and how does it provide value to the market, and a little bit about the company and your role?
Well, Grategy is actually a gratitude and strategy mushed together. And my goal is to really create workplace cultures that attract and retain the top talent, because I believe that when people feel appreciated, when they feel that they're valued and an integral part of the team, they are much more likely to stay.
Yeah,
So I really focus on manufacturing, construction, and the skilled trades. I speak to any organization, but that's where most of my marketing goes to, because number one, we need people in the skilled trades. We need people in manufacturing to basically
absolutely.
give us what we have surrounding us every day. But I'm primarily a keynote speaker, which means that I speak at industry conferences across the country. I do breakout sessions, which are more training type of workshop sessions. I do some consulting. I'm a podcast host. So I do a lot in my business, but everything, no matter what program I'm doing, it all comes down to really not only creating a culture of appreciation, but it starts with gratitude for, in your own life. How do you find the good so that you can rewire your brain? Because that's what gratitude does to make life even better.
Amazing, amazing. And Lisa, very quickly, what does your role look like now? Obviously, you're probably a big team. So are you very much focused on the growth of the business and, business development, business planning? Or are you still involved in the in and outs and, working with a team? What is your role and perhaps a typical day look like for yourself?
Well, I am a solopreneur. I do have a couple virtual assistants that I will hire to do things like graphic design for me, for example, and on project basis. But for the most part, it was so funny because I've been reading this book. I think it's Marcus Buckingham's new book on love and work, and he talks about successful salespeople. And I've been in sales my whole career. I always loved being in sales. I was very proud of my profession. And when he interviewed the most successful people to see what is the best part about the sale, it's the close. It's
Mm,
closing the deal. I mean, I love, love, love being on stage, but man, when I close a deal, so I think that will always be part of what I do, because it's just, to me, it's fun. It's building
yeah.
relationships. I never feel like I'm selling. I feel like I am trying to provide as much value as I can to bring a message to a world of people who need it.
Absolutely. Amazing. Well, Lisa, with that, we can come nicely on to the next topic, which is industry trends. So, what are some industry trends or market shifts you're seeing currently? How do you think they're going to pan out in the next 6 to 12 months and perhaps years to come? And how can people navigate the constant change that's happening within the industry? And how can people stay ahead of the curve?
There's a whole lot of questions in there, and it really starts with the pandemic, because I look at the world of the good old days, which was 2019, and then today, where everything has changed. Employees' expectations of the workplace have changed.
Yeah,
So back in the day, it would be like, if you want to work for my company, you have to change to work for me. And now businesses have to understand, how can I change my organization to attract the people that I need to get the job done?
absolutely.
Because not only do we have technology, which again, through the pandemic has become almost stupid simple to understand, the rise of AI taking over so much. And that's one of the reasons why I'm a solopreneur and I don't need a lot of help, because I have my friends, the robots, that are helping me with
Working
so
day out, day
it's
out.
yeah, it's changed the course of my business, but we look at not only the employee attitudes, but how are companies adjusting? Because having a robot, for example, in a manufacturing plant, not only is that taking away from maybe the grunt work that people associated, dark, dirty, and dangerous when it comes to manufacturing, but it's also a recruiting tool, because when younger people go into that manufacturing plant and they see automation and they see clean and bright and they say, I want to work here, this looks cool. So we just have to little by little, not that we're going to come in and change everything overnight, but to be open to new ideas, to look at the technologies that are out there and to make the right decisions for your organization. Again, to maybe automate some of that grunt work so that it's easier to find people. And then also to provide the quality of jobs and the flexibility that employees are looking for today.
Amazing, amazing. Very well said, Lisa. Now, a trend I wanted to get your thoughts on is something that's blown up in the last 10, 15 years, and it's going to get even bigger, is the power of social media, right? Social media, online presence, showcasing yourself on the internet when perhaps before, there wasn't really a thing. So what is your thoughts on social media? How are you perhaps utilizing social media to your advantage? And what are some pitfalls that business owners need to be mindful of so they don't get themselves caught in a trap?
I think the first one to be mindful of that you can't be everywhere all the time on all the platforms. For example, I am primarily on LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, I am the number one Lisa Ryan on LinkedIn. And that's big because there's like 7,000 Lisa Ryans. So generally, if you type in Lisa Ryan, I come up first.
Amazing.
But I'm there because that's where my people are. On Facebook, I have a lot of my speaker friends on there. I have some of my clients, but I am not on. I do have a YouTube channel that's pretty robust, but I don't pay a lot of attention to that. I don't really do anything on Instagram or TikTok because right now that's not where my people are. And I know that I'm really good with what I do on LinkedIn and Facebook. So the number one thing is to find out where your people are. If you're catering to a younger market, then maybe you're looking at Instagram and TikTok and those other platforms.
Yeah,
But to be really good at just one or two instead of thinking again that you have to be everywhere all the time. And LinkedIn continuously gives new tools. My LinkedIn newsletter, which comes out every Wednesday, it's called Cracking the Retention Code, it's just a really great way to give content and resources to people who are looking for great content.
amazing, amazing. Now, a big sub-trend off the back of social media is that founder-led content, right? Because back in the day, you had the founders, CEOs wouldn't really present themselves. You wouldn't really see them on social media. They didn't really have a LinkedIn, and but this trend of founders, CEOs kind of being the forefront of social media and actually being on camera and showcasing who they are is a massive trend. So, is that something you feel as though you've taken a lot of advantage on? Is that something you're passionate about? Is being vocal, being seen, showing your expertise? And, what are your stance? Is that something business owners should be doing, should be avoiding? Where do you see that sort of trend of founder-led content?
Well, it's interesting because when I talk about my 6 gears of Grategy, one of my gears is access. And part of that is access to leadership, where employees expect to be able to waltz into the CEO's office, sit down, and share ideas with them. Back in the day, that wasn't happening. It was very hierarchical. You would have to go through the correct help, the correct hoops, and the correct procedure to
Yeah,
get to those people in the upper echelon. But if I am looking for a job and I see a CEO who is on social media, who is sharing from his or her heart, who is out into the community, who is bonding with their employees, I'm much more likely to say, wow, that looks like a really good place to work. And aside from the fact that you have websites like Glassdoor, for example, that employees are rating the CEO. So if I go and I'm checking out a company and that CEO has a 20% rating, probably not even going to send my resume there because employees today are looking for that whole picture. They want to feel that they are a part of something bigger, but they also want to feel that they belong, that they are listened to, and that their ideas are accepted. So when CEOs and founders get out of the office and go online and hang out there, they create a much more approachable image.
amazing, amazing. Very well said, Lisa. Now, if we hone in now more on the business, right? Business is doing amazing, right? It's growing. But what are some areas that are working really well, right? And you're going strength to strength. It could be anywhere within the business, sales, operations, marketing, anything. And what are some areas of the business that you're perhaps having some challenges, some problems that you're looking to overcome? It could be vision, it could be strategy, it could be team. Where would you sort of rank each aspect on a scale?
Oh boy, that's such a good question. I mean, as far as what's going well is I feel blessed every day that I have a sales background because I am not afraid to outreach. I'm also not afraid to pick up the phone. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the things that I do. And when I get people on the phone, I know that there's a lot of people that claim that they don't like the phone, but it's such a nice interaction instead of yet another email. So, I've heard with everything going on, with the tariffs going on, there's just a lot of changes. The hospitality industry prices are skyrocketing everywhere. A lot of my friends have had a slower year, and I'm really having a very good year. And a lot of that is because of that persistent outreach and the fact that I really enjoy what I do and I bring that message. I think the areas of where it can, again, trying to be everything, running my books and doing the sales and practicing my speeches so that content that I bring is personalized to that group. I go on plant tours before I speak to a group so that I can really get in depth and understand the industry. And I think the biggest enemy we have sometimes is just time. There's not enough hours in the day to do everything that you want to do and still have a life, especially since I'm a new mom of kittens.
I can completely understand it. How does someone so experienced as you and so, in the industry you've been here now, so how does somebody, perhaps on the advice side, how can somebody navigate this? There's so much to do, so little time. What are some ways or some tips that you have to navigate it? What have you done that is kind of working for you well and you're able to get majority, if not all, of the things off your to-do list and still feel like you've accomplished something at the end of the day?
Well, I will tell you, my CRM, my customer relationship management software program, I would not be able to do what I do without it. I wake up in the morning and I sit down at my computer and I go through and it gives me the tasks that I need to do. So it takes the thinking out of what do I need to do. I can sit down, I know the follow-ups, it's tied into my email so I can see the last couple emails that I sent. Did I get a response? Was it opened? Because that's the main thing I look for. Are they opening my emails? Even if they're not responding, that is showing that there may be some interest there so that I can approach that a little bit differently. And so that is the one thing. Also, I do a lot of training for other speakers when it comes to, I call it smiling and dialing your way to a six-figure speaking business. And I share all of the things that I do. And I also realize that there's kind of a part where I'm a unicorn because I do this stuff. So I have to remind people, fit this into your own life. If you're not making any phone calls at all, make two. The main thing I say, obviously, is to get a CRM, to do something along those lines so that you can do it. But we don't. We have our personal lives, we have our families, we have our vacation time and everything. The other main thing that we do is we got to get out of comparison mode. We are comparing ourselves. Well, I'm better at sales than that person is. And why is she killing it and I'm not? Well, because she's working 18 hours a day and you don't have the capacity to do that. So getting to the point of accepting yourself where you are with the capacity that you have, not using that as an excuse because you still got to do the work, but doing a little bit more than what you're doing now is better than not making a move at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if we can now talk about the future, right? I know you've probably got some massive goals on the vision board and some big things you want to achieve, but are there some, what does the next 6 to 12 months look like for yourself, Lisa? If we're talking personally, right? And then we talk about business, what do you want to achieve? What kind of impact do you want to leave behind? And perhaps in several years from now, what do you want to look back and feel a sense of accomplishment? having achieved?
I have very much a lifestyle business. So when it comes to the thought of retiring, I can't even imagine that happening because as long as I am having fun, I will continue to do what I do. The main thing that I'm working on now is getting on bigger stages so that I can, this is going to, yeah, so that I can travel. I like to travel 40 to 60 events a year.
Okay,
That's a really good program for me. It gives me enough airline miles so that I can have status. But the other thing is that my husband has started traveling with me. So in the mixing of the business and personal life, because when I go places, I speak at really nice places. And for years, Scott kind of lived vicariously through me. And now we get to travel together. So it's really a nice combination of both where I get to do what I love with the person that I love and visit some really cool places because traveling is one of my very favorite things to do.
amazing, amazing. And Lisa, I guess just to wrap up on, what is the biggest piece of advice you've ever received, or perhaps the biggest lesson you've learned the hard way that could change the trajectory of someone's career or business that's listening in on the podcast today?
Well, I think the best piece of advice that I got early in my career was to build your list. From the very first interaction with a customer, from the very first networking event that you go to, whatever it is, you start building that list because there's so many times that we lose those connections or we think about the hundreds, if not thousands of people that we've met over our years. How many of those could not only turn into customers, but referral sources for them if we just took the time to stay in touch? So that is the best piece of advice and the consistency. When I am consistently doing the work, making those 5 dials minimum every day, reaching out, I know that my business is consistent. If I start to get busy and I fall behind on my prospecting, then when the events are done, my funnel is empty. And I don't like when my funnel's empty.
Amazing. Well, Lisa, thank you so much. I couldn't have asked for a better podcast. So much value, so much insight, which I've really enjoyed. I'm sure everyone listening has really enjoyed as well. So massive thank you from me. Massive thank you to everyone who's listening, I'm sure. Any final comments before we do wrap up? Anything for perhaps clients, staff, team members, potential listeners, or anything of the like? Anything you want to say?
There's one of my favorite artists is Marcus Pearson, and he has a painting called Spectacular Journey. And on it, he's like a motivational painter, but on the painting it says that many have journeyed further and gone have let's see, and done better in their lives have bothered me not. And this is the line that I'm not going to mess up is my journey was my own and I found it to be spectacular. So if we stop comparing ourselves to everybody else out there, look at your own journey and enjoy the ride, it makes life so much better.
Wow, that's powerful. Amazing. Lisa, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure. Hopefully, we can do this again at some time in the future. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in today. See everyone next time.